Hi there, folks. This is the Mel Wright Real Estate Agent Show, episode 67. Yes, folks, I made a slight mistake in the last show with the show numbers. The first time I ever done that, but it was right this time. We've got a great episode for you, folks. I've got we've got a great guest, Jackie D'Elia, and also I've got my new co-host, Thomas. Hey, Thomas, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience first?
Sure. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm Thomas J. Nelson. I'm a residential realtor here in beautiful San Diego, California. And you can find me on my website at thomasjnelsonrealtor.com and, of course, on Facebook.
That's great, Thomas. Hey, Jackie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Jackie D'Elia, and I run Jackie D'Elia Design, which is a web design and development service in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, it's a great friend of mine, and I just thought would be a great expert. Jackie's a really a fantastic developer, designer. She's called in the trade a unicorn because I think her design and development work are both really very strong, and I hate her because she can do both. So, folks, what we're going to be talking about is that we had John Locke on a couple of previous episodes, and he's talked about local SEO. And we also have talked about different options if you want a website. And in this episode, we're going to be trying to give you some advice on if you want a real semi-custom or full custom design. And both me and Jackie would agree if you're going to go down that route, that WordPress is the best solution for that. But there's different options if you in WordPress. So, Jackie, you've worked with a number of real estate agents on really high-end, full custom, semi-custom designs. Can you give some idea what are some of the options if you're going down the WordPress route and you want semi or full custom?
Okay, I guess my background in this, just to give a precursor to this, is I did have a real estate license for a number of years. I was a part-time agent and was also a broker in Texas for up until this last year, where I'm no longer an active agent or broker anymore. But what got me involved in doing some agent websites was when I moved to Charlotte, I was still doing some part-time real estate work, and I found myself spending most of my development time building out my site and working on IDX integration, and a lot of folks that I worked around were seeking the same types of services. So when I decided to go full-time back into development, that was a natural course to do some work for other agents. So the decisions that an agent needs to make, and this would be also different than, say, from an agency, a brokerage agency, because they may have a completely different purpose in mind for their website. But number one is understanding what the purpose of your website is. So that's it. If you're a new agent and you're just starting off, you're going to have different needs than somebody who is a very established agent that has a lot of listings, that really may want to use their website for marketing and showcasing properties that they've listed and that they have on the market. So there's lots of different focuses and reasons why you would want to have a website. And you can go from services that can provide a hosted solution and give you a pretty canned website where you choose a template and you get an IDX feed on there. And I think, one of the mistakes most agents are making is believing that the IDX feed is all they need, and that is all anybody's going to be looking for on their website. And I think that's a big oversight. So the reason I'm saying that is because every website has IDX feeds today. They're everywhere. So it's very common. And most people, if they're mobile and they're out searching for properties and driving around neighborhoods, are going to probably be on one of those main sites like Realtor.com, like Zillow, Trulia. The list, there's a good list there. for mobile displays. So to have a robust application that's going to compete with them on that environment is going to be an expensive endeavor for an individual agent to come up with. So understanding what the purpose is, and most of the times it's going to be for marketing yourself and getting your name out there and building brand recognition and being an authority in specific neighborhoods and areas that you work. So understanding that would be my first question in deciding what route a agent would want to go with a website.
Yeah, I think that's such fantastic advice, and I do understand about all the confusion, folks, because if I was an agent and I didn't have the background that I've got, it would be so easy to make some fundamental mistakes. And I think I agree with Jackie. I think everything's got a little bit back to front, really, folks. If I was starting as an agent, or I was in my second year as an agent, I would want a website, but I wouldn't be that interested in having a superb IDX functionality, because I probably won't have the houses to list anyway. And secondly, the more important areas, I would want to get real content on that website, and I would want to link it to building up my list of contacts, my database, which is 101 of real estate, building a database, and also utilising it as a hub for my social media and actually writing content that is useful for my local community. Would you agree with that, Jackie?
I do, and I think that is the most difficult for most agents to accomplish. There are some I've seen that have done an excellent job at that. In fact, when my sister was getting ready to move to Charlotte before I did, I found an agent online that was specializing in relocation to Charlotte. Had a great website, had video right on the homepage of the agent talking about the city, all of the good features of it, and then had tons of other videos and articles about specific neighborhoods, benefits, features, you know, just all the overall great things about the communities. That was an easy choice for me to refer to my sister and said, hey, call this guy. He's going to be somebody who can help somebody new to Charlotte find the right neighborhood in the right place. So he was able to set himself up as an authority, and especially in relocation for people coming into the city. So he was definitely somebody who's representing buyers, okay? So, and that's the thing. There's typically, you're going to be focused in one area or another primarily, and he enjoyed working with buyers coming to the city. So that's great. If you're going to be relocating, finding somebody maybe who is a listing agent may not be your best choice for that, because their focus and energies are going into finding listings and not actually, you know, finding the right neighborhoods for buyers. I'm not saying it's a general assumption that you should make and that it's going to be true for everybody. There are some people that are doing very good at both. But I do think people have a natural tendency to excel in one of those two areas. Either they're going to be really good at listing properties, they're really good at staging, they just have that whole mindset. They also own neighborhoods in respect to the fact that they really market those neighborhoods. They do a lot of direct marketing. They know all the activity that's going on in that area, and they become authorities in that area. And when you're a seller, that's what you want. You want somebody who knows your area. You don't want to work with an agent that has never been exposed to your neighborhood or knows very much about the schools, the town, the area that you live in. So in that regard, you know, understanding what your focus is going to be, and then writing content on your website that is going to help reinforce that and build that as an authority. And in this case, that agent did a very good job of saying, I am somebody here to help people relocate to the area. This is my specialty. This is what I do. And all of the information on his website was geared towards helping people get moving to Charlotte. And that was his win. That is why he was successful at that, I think. And that's why somebody who has been from another town that didn't meet him, didn't even have a phone call with him, felt very comfortable in referring him just based on the videos I saw and the activities and the testimonials on his website.
Yeah, I think what you just said is something we've talked about on the shows before, and it's that a lot of clients are now pre-qualifying you as an agent online before they even speak to you, folks. Thomas, got any questions for Jackie?
Yeah, actually, she brought up a couple questions for me right away. Jackie and, well, Jonathan, you both have made a good point that, you know, when you're a newer agent, maybe a more templated website is affordable and what you want to work with until you have the funds. But Jackie, since you've been in the business, at what point do you see an agent needing to bridge that and leave the template and go to the custom? Is it a production number? Is it a number of years in the business? I mean, what do you look for as an agent to know you need to make that transition?
Well, I think once you have a consistent level of income where you can afford to take care of that website and to nurture it and feed it, that would be probably a driver for that. And especially if you're working in a luxury market, branding is going to be really important, and that may move up your timeline because you may want a really specialized branded site for you. You know, invest in logo, invest in the whole overall design, and make sure it's very unique. I think that's a driver because for listing high-end properties, those sellers are going to be more discriminating about who they're going to work with and how their properties are going to be represented. So that would be one thing. I think, though, that once you're making consistent income, that and you know, some agents choose to be part-time, some are full-time, you know, depending on what your focus is and what your goal is. When you do have consistent income in a site, then start looking at how people are finding you right now. That would be my first thing, is how are they finding you? What is it that what's going to be the purpose of the website again? So you're ready to go to the next level. Maybe if you're a listing agent, one of the nice things about having an IDX feed on there is so that you can showcase your own listings that you've got on your site. And that is a great sales tool when you go to meet with sellers, right? You need to have, if you go to a seller and you don't have a website, you have a landing page with, you know, very little, or you have a very canned, basic site that, like Playster, one of those sites or something. I'm not saying that there's anything bad with that, but I'm just saying that a very inexpensive templated site, and you're going to go list high-end luxury homes, that you may find that to be a challenge there. So,
I would agree, yeah.
So, yeah. And then if you're a buyer's agent, your focus, definitely you want to have IDX feed on there because you want listings. You want when people come to your site, if they're looking for an agent to help them buy a house, then having listings available to browse through while they're there, intermixed with really good content that's localized content. And that's the challenge that I think most people, and it's a great opportunity. I mean, you see a new movie theater being built, you see a new restaurant being built, you've tried something new in a community. These are short little articles that you can write and if you're good with your keywords and mention where it is and the town it's in or the part of the neighborhood that it's adjacent to, the schools that it services, all of those things. If you target that well and you do some good interlinking strategy on your website so that if you've mentioned a community here and you've written a nice little section on your site about that community, then whenever you mention that community on one page, you need to make sure that you link it to the other page. Not just go ahead and write it as hard text and without a link. You're missing a great opportunity to build a good interlinking SEO strategy that reinforces those pages and are good drivers to show that your site is not a silo. There's other pages with valuable information on there, and you'll rank better in search when somebody maybe is looking for that neighborhood. I hope I answered some of those questions.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you this on the content, because you make a great point about the local content. And I happen to be a blogger too. And my concern's always if I have the same content on my website as it's on my blog. Is there a theory behind?
Yes, you should not do that. If you're going to do that, if you want to use it, repurpose it elsewhere, you can rephrase it and then link back to the original one. Put it on the site where you want the weight to go. Okay, so if you want your blog to be the weight where you want people to land and to attract your traffic, then you put it there. If you want your website to be the place where the traffic is going to go, then you might write a summary on your blog with a link to the actual article or page that you wrote on your site. But don't cut and paste an entire article from one to the other, because you then have duplicate content, and one of them is going to get penalized for it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And before we go, just to say something to you, Thomas, before we go to our break, where afterwards we're going to be talking about actual prices, folks, and options, to give some guidance, is, Thomas, I would really, unless it's really, really fundamentally going to be damaging, I really question that you have a separate blog to your website. I really think you should consider combining the two together. But there might be circumstances where that's not possible. But if it is, Thomas, I would just really strongly advise you to do that. So we're going to go for our break, folks. We'll be back. We'll be talking more with Jackie, and we'll be getting some figures as well, folks. Back in a minute. We're coming back, folks. We're having a really interesting discussion about website with somebody who not only was an agent but a broker, but is somebody that I really admire for their coding and design skills. That's Jackie. So Jackie, you know, you are looking to have IDX, and you're looking for something that's a bit more semi-custom or full custom. You're going to get some sticker shock, I feel, aren't you, Jackie? So can you just give some rough landscape of what kind of prices we're probably talking if we're going to approach somebody like yourself for a full semi or custom design with IDX?
Well, these days, to work with me on an IDX integration on a custom site is going to start at around $5K and up from there. Just for the amount of time that it's going to take to do that properly. I would say you may be able to find some options that are going to be a little less expensive than that. But realistically, you have to think, the way that you want to think about this is if you had to hire somebody to come in your office and work for you for a month to build you a website and to go through all of your content with you, help you with your SEO, actually design a site that's going to do more than just look good. You want it to actually, the whole purpose you're doing this, if you're getting to that point where you're ready to make that investment, you want a return on the investment. You don't want it to be an expense. You've got to look at that as, okay, this is an investment. And it's going to be not a one-time cost. Websites get old as time goes by, years go by. Every 2 years, you're going to need a refresh on your site. You're going to need to do some maintenance on it as well. So you want to budget that in there. But that's the way that you should look at it. If you have to hire somebody to come and work at your office for a month, and typically it's probably going to take longer than that to get a website done, with all of the review time and the back and the forth in putting it all together. That's about what it's going to cost you, is what I would say. And a good range would be with a good IDX integration and something that actually works, where you actually are focusing also on what the mobile experience is going to be, because that's the other important thing. I wrote an article recently on my site about, designing with letting go of that desktop design mindset. And I design on a desktop, so this is a frustration for me as well, right? So this is a challenge for me when I'm working. I design on a desktop, my tools are desktop tools, everything about what I'm showing my clients for the most part are the desktop designs, because that's what they want to see. That's their visualization of a website. But you've got to also spend time and energy on making sure that you're providing a good user experience on mobile, and especially in the real estate market and field. That's very important, because in many instances, users are going to be visiting your site from a device. Many of them on an iPad or a tablet of some sort is very common, because you've got to remember, when you're consuming content like that, typically people like those types of devices to consume and read content. So that's going to be another focus that you'll want to have on there. So that whole effort into just putting a site together, your design, making sure it works well on mobile, making sure your call to actions are done properly and that they're going to work on all of these devices, that takes some effort and time.
Yeah, I think what you're describing, instead of taking a template and trying to fit your area, the kind of content you've got, and trying to fit it into a template, you're getting an expert that should actually advise you on the content, and the design is actually constructed on the content that's available, on the personality of the agent,
right,
of the brokerage. I think
here's a good example. If you have a website and you have a sidebar that has some really nice important information that's in the upper right-hand side on a sidebar on a typical site, on a mobile device with a mobile-friendly design, that sidebar gets shoved to the bottom. And then depending on how long your main content is, this may be something that is never even seen on mobile. They may never even scroll down far enough to even realize the sidebar is down there. So these are considerations that you need to be aware of when you're doing your design and saying, okay, maybe I'm going to need to come up with a different layout on a mobile phone or a tablet that is going to reorder some of that content or position it in a different way where that information is available. Maybe you do some kind of a little bar at the top of the screen or something. But my whole point of that article was to start thinking about, instead of just trying to resize everything and make it all fit on mobile, that's not really solving the user experience problems that we have when we just try to force everything to fit in a design. So that was a good example. What you're saying too is you know, you need to be aware of that. You can't just stretch and refit content and assume that that is going to work, that is a good user experience, because having something that you would like people to see way down at the bottom of the page on a mobile phone that they may never even know is there isn't really providing that user experience that you want.
I think that's great, because with a full semi-custom design, you have those options, folks, where the order of content on a mobile device is under your control. And you've got to remember, folks, that over 70 to 80% of your people that come to your website are going to be coming there on a mobile device. I think before I bring Thomas in to answer more questions, Jackie, is that the other thing that I would really strongly advise agents, if you're in that position production-wise and branding-wise, to look at that type of investment, 5,000 plus, folks, is that I would also, realistically, I think you also need the budget to hire somebody to help you with the writing of the content. Hopefully you will have a substantial amount of content that's already available. That's like the beginning stages as you work up to this full custom website. But I also think to reduce the frustration you're going to feel about this process considerably, and instead of it being a really difficult, painful, you know, no matter how conscientious the developer is, to make it a much more easier, pleasant process is to hire a professional copywriter to help you. And the developer probably will be able to advise you on that. And also look at their copy, and they don't have to be an expert about real estate, because they will probably be helping you with copy around the local area. And the second most visited page, apart from your home page, folks, is normally on a real estate agent website or brokerage, is the About Us page. And having really not these awful canned about bios, but having a real message that really resonates with your target audience is a skill. So, Thomas, have you got some more questions to ask Jackie?
Yes, please. Jackie, I want to circle back. We were talking about budgeting for this, and what would be a reasonable expectation for a monthly budget to handle the maintenance of it? And then is there a benefit to what you mentioned every 2 years wanting to update that site? Is there a price benefit to working with the same person rather than going outside and finding somebody new to update the site?
Okay, from the monthly maintenance perspective, there's a couple of choices that you've got. If you're going to be using a self-hosted WordPress site where you're not paying for somebody to host it, and there are some options that you can do that are less expensive if you're starting off, maybe a couple $100 to get a template set up and $99 a month or something along those lines for the hosting and your IDX feed. It's going to be very generic. You're not going to be able to have a lot of flexibility in making changes, but they'll cover the maintenance of the install on a monthly basis. Once you go to a self-hosted version where you have total control of your site and everything else, you're going to pay for your own IDX feed. You're going to pay for your hosting, which typically for the average site, and I'd say with the average traffic, you should be budgeting a couple of $100 a year for your hosting. You're going to probably want to, clients I work with, they pay me a monthly fee, usually about $85 a month, to monitor their website, make sure their plugins are updated, backed up, run malware scans on it, and just kind of keep the engine running smoothly. And
Right.
also be alerted if the website's down for more than 5 minutes. I'll get an alert telling me that there's a problem. Can jump in and solve that. It also includes, my packages also include some time for small tasks that somebody might need some help with. Hey, can you tweak this or make some changes there? But there's lots of services you can go to provide those maintenance type services on a site. It's you don't have to have your developer do it.
Yeah,
The other thing is, let me just finish on that one point there with the developer is, I build my sites to web standards so that if I'm not available or something happens to me, that this is going to be easy for somebody else to pick up and go with. And that's probably why I use Genesis Framework, because there's a large pool of developers that all know how to work with it. And anybody actually who works in WordPress could easily be able to work with the Genesis Framework and modify it. But you don't want to be locked in where somebody's not doing things in a standard way that's going to make it difficult later to do that. So those be questions I would ask your developer when you're talking to them up front is, how are they going to build this site? Are they going to have access to all the code that you've written, the plugins, and those types of things? And also, if something happens to me, can somebody else pick up and go on and make changes to it? Most of the time, you're going to want to probably tweak your existing design, but I don't know how often, but I've done some sites a few years ago that I would think right now are due for a refresh, a new theme design actually, because some of those are just not taking advantage of the newer technology that's available for them. So before it was just mobile responsiveness. Now you have to also worry about accessibility. Is your site accessible for people with disabilities, for vision issues, and just lots of challenges in making sure that your site's accessible as well.
Yeah, I think, Jackie, the other thing is it's really difficult, this conversation, because we know all about these options, but for the average agent broker, and I'm not being dismissive here, they can start to glaze over. But I think one way, I'm going to hopefully see what you and Thomas thinks about how I'm going to say this now, folks, is do you want to continue to rent, or do you want to buy? And I think that's really a terminology that agents do understand. Now, because renting is perfectly fine at a certain stage of your life or certain circumstances. If you don't plan to stay in the area or you don't plan to invest a lot, renting is perfectly a good option. And with a lot of these enclosed systems, one of the things you don't realise is I would be wary on investing a lot of money on content, because some of these systems, it's very hard to export the content in a way that you can import into a system that you actually own. And what Jackie's, when you're talking about 5,000 plus, and a lot of agents think, oh, I could never consider that. Well, you should, at the right stage. It's the right investment at the right moment. But if you're looking at that type of investment, would you really want to put in at 5,000 into rented property? I don't think so. If you're going to put that type of money, you want to own it. Do you think that kind of the way I've explained it, Thomas, it was a good way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it certainly speaks to me, the rent versus own mentality, and it does make sense at a certain point. That was kind of where I was going with that original question of when does an agent decide to own versus rent, and I think budgeting comes into play, but also at some point you need to come off that generic approach and look more branded to your clientele that you have and that you're trying to acquire.
Yes, and also the whole hub of your social hub is really important there too. I mean, you don't want to build all of your web presence on a Facebook page, right? Because you don't own that Facebook page. The terms and conditions can change at any time. Right. And if all of your activity and leads are coming from something that you have no control over, what's better in those situations is to have your hub, which is something you own, and then you have feeds from elsewhere coming into your hub, and from your hub linking to feeds. So you may change those feeds over time. Maybe Facebook is real popular right now and that's where you send people, but later on it may be something else. But you always want to have your own, you want to own your hub where all of your information is. And the other driver that I think is really important is once you start building substantial content and you are consistently producing content, that is a good indicator that it's time to have your own property, your own site. The longer you delay that, the more complicated it's going to be trying to get that valuable content from A to B later. And that's going to be your challenges. And I've seen some people where they've actually abandoned their content because it was too difficult to get it off. And that's sad, that or had to pay somebody to literally go to each one and cut and paste them and rebuild those pages from scratch. So, you know, if you're somebody who's not going to be blogging at all and you make all of your contacts out at open houses, and you know, you have a completely different mindset. You're out meeting people and building your network and doing it there, and you're not really relying on your website, and you're not writing any blogs, you're not content. That may not be a big issue for you. But if you're actually considering using online experience to bring traffic and customers and clients to you, then it's important to own that property where your content is.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, Jackie. I think we're going to wrap up the show. The time has gone really quick. We could have continued the conversation. I think we'll invite Jackie back in the new year to continue the discussion at some stage. Would you be up to that, Jackie?
I'd be happy to.
Because I think we could have continued the discussion, but we try and keep the show to about 30 to 35 minutes, folks. We'll be back next week with a guest, and we've also got a guest for the following week. And I'm sure you're going to really enjoy the interviews and get some value. How can people get hold of you, Jackie?
You can reach me at JackieDelia.com, and that's DELIA. And you can find me on Twitter at JDelia. And those will be the two primary spots you can find me, I think.
And I would say personally, if you know, if you're looking for a real high-end custom job and a partner, I couldn't recommend Jackie higher. Her work ethic and her knowledge, I'm sure, would benefit your business. Thomas, how can people get hold of you?
Oh, thank you. Yes, they can reach me on my website, thomasjnelsonrealtor.com. Also my Facebook page, or I'm on LinkedIn as well.
And like I would say about Jackie, Thomas has got enormous experience in the real estate. If you're looking for a partner, you've got a client that's moving into his area, recommend Thomas highly. You know, his breadth of experience is quite considerable. How you can get hold of me, at jonathan@mel-light.com. You can get me on Twitter. Got any questions, just go to Twitter and ask them. That's at Jonathan Denwood. I always reply to my Twitter. And I do reply to my email. If you've got any questions or you need any advice, just contact me and I'm here to help you. It would be my pleasure. So thanks, Jackie and Thomas, and we'll see you next week for some more technology and advice about how to build up your real estate business. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.